Let's do it. Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Cini, Houston, Texas. Appreciate you joining us tonight. I get to introduce Stuart Tomc out of San Diego, who is the speaker extraordinaire here. You know, Stuart actually has been known as the Omega Man for a long time. He has been all over the world on over 6,000 TV, radio, and podcasts. And as the former global educator and spokesperson for Nordic Naturals, that giant omega 3 supplement company, made a name for himself worldwide, recommending everybody get tested for their omega 3 level in their blood, which is amazing. And if you see here, this is a press release from New Zealand 13 years ago, October of 2012. It says omega 3 health expert and consultant to the WHO, Stuart Tomc, is urging New Zealanders to take an at home omega 3 blood test. That's what we're doing right here, only ours is way more comprehensive because you're actually getting your omega ratio between your omega 6 and 3. And Stuart definitely was way ahead of his time, and we are so blessed to have him here now, plugged in with Zinzino. And now you're going to get to benefit from all his wisdom as he schools everybody on what the heck is going on here with Zinzino. So, Stuart, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, John, for the warm introduction. And to all of our guests this evening, this is our medical professional call. And I'm so honored that you took the time. What I'm going to get to share with you tonight, I believe, is the biggest breakthrough in personal nutrition that I've ever heard in my life. And what John said about this company deploying these at-home fingertip blood spot tests to completely empower patients to take responsibility for their own health. This company, Zinzino, is the unsung hero. You haven't heard of them yet. Not most people haven't, but they're the world leader in this at-home blood spot testing. And their biggest, most famous test is the balance test. And I want to share this statement here that many of the colleagues that I'm friends with signed this unanimous consensus statement back in 2011. Just listen to these words. These aren't marketers. These aren't salespeople. These are the top omega-3 experts alive. Said brain and heart disorders resulting from omega-3 deficiency are the biggest challenges to the future of humanity. Associated costs are currently bankrupting healthcare systems and threatening wider economic instability worldwide. Well, I took that message when I was at Nordic Naturals, and we shared that all over the world. We told everybody, if you really want to know if your nutrition is working, if you want to know if your omega-3 is working, you need to take this at-home blood spot test. So this has been brewing for a long time. At the same time, Bernadine Healy, medical doctor, former NIH director and president and CEO of the Red Cross, said no nutrient is more important for decreasing cardiovascular death and more lacking than omega-3. So why the confusion when we look at randomized control trials? Because it's not just about take 2 fish oil pills and call me in the morning. You're going to hear today that what's really going on with the omega-3 story is that if we're not testing, we're guessing. So I'm going to share with you tonight what the world experts have taught me. Number 1, nix the 6 and eat the 3. So it's not just eliminate the omega-6, it's also eat enough omega-3. Number 2, the tissue is the issue. What does that mean? All that matters is your individual number in your red blood cell. Then we'll talk about which factors are the actors. Commercial fish oil is like denatured milk, homogenized, pasteurized milk. It's not like eating fish, and Zinzino figured out how to mimic the delivery of nature. And then the next thing we're going to talk about is we have a test here that may predict cellular inflammation and even longevity. And then finally, I think we can all agree Americans' brains need an oil change, and we're here to save the day. So Zinzino's mission is to become the biggest preventive health company in the world. That's why I joined Zinzino. They have a vision and a mission to have 100 million customers participate in kitchen table medicine, Scandinavian style, where you take these at-home blood spot tests at your kitchen table. They're painless, they're anonymous, they take 1 minute, and then the highest quality products are shipped to your front door. So for today, so that we are all speaking the exact same language, when I talk about the omega-6-3 ratio, we are specifically talking about the omega-6 AA to omega-3 EPA ratio. So when we say omega-6-3 balance, we're not lumping all of the omega-6s and all of the omega-3s into the same bucket. That's not what we're measuring. It's a very important proxy for systemic inflammation. That's the AA-EPA ratio. A perfect score would be 1-to-1 AA-EPA. You'll see why. 2-to-1 is passing. 3-to-1 is passing, but 4-to-1 is failing. When we talk about the omega-3 index, we're not just talking about the total milligram amount of omega-3 that the patient is taking. We're talking about the percentage of EPA and DHA that are in the red blood cell. Now, you're going to see why this is so important. Arachidonic acid makes the largely pro-inflammatory hormone-like compounds, the eicosanoids, where EPA, omega-3, makes the largely anti-inflammatory hormone-like compounds, and they compete for conversion and for placement. And then omega-3s, EPA and DHA, not only do they make the anti-inflammatory hormone-like compounds, they make these things called SPMs, specialized pro-resolution lipid mediators. Wow, that's a mouthful. And they orchestrate the resolution of inflammation. So I want us to be clear that the numbers you get from this test, we're going to give you the AA-EPA ratio, the omega-3 index, and total of 11 different fatty acids. We measure the saturated fats, palmitic and stearic acid, oleic acid, all of the omega-3s and all of the omega-6s. That's why this test is so important. So let's just look at the Inuit paradox. That's what started the whole thing, Bang and Dyerberg. In the late 60s, early 70s, they went up and drew the blood of the Inuit. They were eating whale blubber. They had lower levels of cholesterol, higher amount of saturated fat that they were eating, and lower levels of heart disease. Well, if you look at the schematic here, arachidonic acid gets converted through COX-1 and COX-2 into thromboxane A2. Now, that will thicken your blood, causes vasoconstriction, promotes atherosclerosis, platelet aggregation, can lead to ischemic stroke. And it's really, really important. However, it needs to be balanced by EPA that produces thromboxane A3. So at the end of the day, it really ends up being a brake and pedal physiology. Which signal dominates? Now, we say 1-to-1 AA to EPA is a perfect score. For the history books, the Inuit had 3 parts EPA and 1 part AA. They also ended up having little bloody noses because it thinned their blood so much. So I hope everyone can see how important this brake and pedal physiology is for human health. So what are the consequences of the omega-3 deficiency? So the former NIH director, Dr. Bernadine Healy, says there's no nutrient that's more important, and still the conflicting double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized studies. Well, Zinzino has figured out why, and we'll tell you why. What are the consequences of the omega-3 deficiency? Your AA-EPA ratio is not 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or 1-to-1, and your omega-3 index is less than 8. We have finally identified the biomarkers. If you want the benefit that omega-3 fatty acids have to offer for keeping healthy people healthy, we need to be in balance, and we need the right percentage of EPA and DHA in our red blood cells. So we've identified this as the safe zone. 3-to-1, 2-to-1, or 1-to-1, and 8% or higher of the omega-3 index. So the history of omega-6 to omega-3 balance is really the history of human civilization. In fact, omega-6 and omega-3 share the exact same enzymatic pathways. So they compete for conversion and placement. And before the Industrial Revolution, if we had the technology to test people back then, we predict that they would be 1-to-1, 2-to-1, maybe 3-to-1 based on their diet. So what happened? We moved from nutrient-dense foods to calorically dense foods. We used to eat the right amount of fatty acids in our diet. We had the right amino acids. We had enough protein. We had the right amount of polyphenols, the anti-nutrients as they were called. We had the right amount of carotenoids in our diet. We had the right amount of fiber. And then we moved to calorically dense food. In the late 1960s, we put a human being on the moon. We still had starving children in Appalachia. They passed the Farm Bill, and they pumped soybean into everything. Take a look at this chart. That is horrifying. Soybean consumption just went up and up and up. And that's why what I learned from the world experts when they taught me, nix the 6 and eat the 3. You turn on YouTube right now, everyone's beating up on the seed oils. They need to finish the sentence. If you're eating that much omega-6, you need just as much omega-3 to stay in balance. Now, in 2024, one of the biggest population cohorts, we started data mining the UK Biobank. There are 500,000 people in the UK Biobank. Now, using this cohort of 85,425, researchers found out that higher ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids is associated with a greater risk of all-cause cancer and cardiovascular mortality. This is powerful information. This is suggesting that more omega-6 than omega-3 is associated with a greater risk of all-cause mortality. What does that mean to you? Going from out of balance into balance is a major modifiable risk factor. Now, if we go back a couple of years to the Framingham offspring cohort here in the United States, using a red blood cell fingerprint, the same technology to predict the risk of all-cause mortality, they say very clearly that a higher omega-3 index, that's the percentage of EPA and DHA in your red blood cell, above 6.8, we want it to be greater than 8, lived on average about 4.7 years longer than those with lower levels, and a 34% reduction in all-cause mortality. So when I talk to my mentors, the leading experts in the field, and I say, is it accurate to say that this balance test may predict cellular inflammation and even longevity itself? It is absolutely defensible. Now, just the other day, I had a conversation with a former senior FDA compliance regulator who also has worked in private industry. And I showed him this paper in the Journal of Clinical Lipidology. If you missed this, for all the doctors, is a must read. William G. Franco, MD. It's his first major publication. He collaborated with some of the experts, including William Harris. And they took the omega-3 index, which is the percentage of EPA and DHA in the red blood cell, and they added it to what's called the pooled cohort equation for predicting risk for CVD. The pooled cohort equation looks at your age. That's the biggest risk factor. The older you are, the greater the risk. Sex. Women usually live longer than men. Race, total cholesterol, HDL, blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. So they added the omega-3 index, the information that we are providing to your patients, into the pooled cohort equation on the right side of the slide. Please follow this with me. It's such a big deal. The paper argues that the omega-3 index should be considered for inclusion in the standard clinical assessments. Directly from my mentors, mark their words. You know your shoe size, your HDL, your LDL, your triglyceride. You're going to know your AA-EPA ratio and your omega-3 index. Why do you not know it yet? Because it's not yet included in the standard clinical risk assessment. Now, pay close attention. This information reveals hidden cardiovascular risk, not explained by cholesterol, blood pressure, or smoking, pointing to inflammation, membrane structure, and heart rhythm regulation. We now know the numbers. Just like you have a healthy biomarker range for anything, now we know with omega-3, look at it and see it yourself. You're at high risk if you're less than 4% EPA and DHA in the red blood cell, intermediate risk from 4 to 8, and you only have the low risk, the cardioprotective effects that you've heard about omega-3 if the patient is greater than 8% in the red blood cell. So what does it say at the bottom here? By raising your omega-3 index through diet or supplements, you aren't just taking vitamins, you're actively modifying one of the most statistically significant predictors of your cardiovascular future. This is the future of care for all patients. Will eventually need to know this number. It's that important. So how does this affect our cells? We're made of 37 trillion cells. We make 300 billion new cells a day. We got new red blood cells that are coming online from the bone marrow every day. And so look closely at this slide. If you are out of balance, your cells are not optimized. What do I mean by that? That semi-permeable membrane, there's about 1,000 fatty acids in that cell membrane total. Omega-6s are relatively stiff in comparison to omega-3s. Saturated fats are, of course, like little broomsticks. If you don't have enough omega-3 in the cell membrane, if your AA-EPA ratio is higher than 3 to 1, if your omega-3 index is less than 8, nutrients are having a difficult time getting into the cell. Metabolic waste products have a difficult time getting out. And then, of course, we have the lipid bilayer around all of our mitochondria. It is self-assembling this cell membrane, and it makes itself with whatever fats are there. Now, if anyone knows Bruce Lipton's work, considered one of the fathers of epigenetics, in his book, The Biology of Belief, Dr. Lipton said, the cell membrane is a liquid crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. So if you want to optimize the brain of your cell, you have to optimize the cell membrane. How do we do that? We go from out of balance into balance. We stop guessing, we start testing. When you get back into balance, that's where we see benefit for brain function, hair quality, heart function, skin elasticity, inner organs, joints, and muscles. Because when you get back into balance, nutrients can more effectively get into the cell, meaning all the nutrition that your patients are consuming. Metabolic waste products can get out more effectively. The red blood cell now has the shear strength to get into the microcapillary. We have the right ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 to mount a healthy inflammatory response. This is important. And then enough EPA and DHA to produce the SPMs to resolve inflammation. So would you like to take a test and find out your results? This is the future of all nutrition. Fingertip testing, and Zinzino is the master from Scandinavia. I like to call it kitchen table medicine. You test at your kitchen table, and then the highest quality product gets sent to your front door at the lowest price. That's how they do it in Scandinavia with their patients. And you'll see how you can plug in. And the customer experience is the Netflix of nutrition. It's 10 times better, not 10% better. What do I mean? When I was at Nordic Naturals, we used to make the argument, we make the world's safest, most effective omega oils. Take 2, doesn't matter how big you are. We were guessing, we weren't testing. Zinzino shows up and says, if we don't test the patient at baseline, we have no idea. We're then going to send this sample, this is important, to a third-party independent laboratory, blinded data. I'm not going to write your name on an envelope like that first omega-3 blood spot test that I found years ago, totally blinded data. And then you're going to start on their omega super product. They call it balance oil. What good is just taking the balance test if you don't have a solution? And they cracked the code. They made an omega-3 product, I'll detail it for you in a moment, that is as close to eating fish as you've ever seen. It's actually a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. Then they email you your results home. I'll show you my test results later. I failed miserably. You stay on the product for 120 days. Why? We can't affect the 120-day-old red blood cells. That's what we're testing. are the red blood cells. However, the new ones come online every day. After 4 months, that's sort of the total life of a red blood cell, give or take. So we tested baseline, and then we test again to prove to the patient that it's working. And then it changes their brain, because subconsciously they're so involved in their health, they then get competitive and want to share it with all their friends and family. It's brilliant for compliance. All the samples go here. I had to see it with my own eyes before I became a Zinzino independent partner. They flew me out there, and my wife, Zinzino's biggest competitor is Nordic Naturals, so I was a little bit of a catch. And they flew me out there to see it with my own eyes. Wow! If you go to Norway, you go check it out in the Science Center. It's at the top floor. They got robots that are doing all of the work. They work with the top institutions and businesses in the world. Their number one customer is Zinzino. I'll show you why. Because they've tested 1.6 million people. It's their biggest customer. And we found a world out of balance. If you're looking for a unified field theory, they're hard to find. How about this? We all have the exact same red blood cell. And people are failing all over the world. 97% of people fail. 95% of people pass once they learn about Zinzino. So once you take the test, here's your little number on your test. You type in your data. We take all that information and we publish. And look at the publication we released about 5 months ago. This is the largest observational study on dry blood spot testing ever published. 590,000 of the 1.6 million tests. So where are the other samples? Shh. Those are other publications that are going through peer review right now. But our first major paper says suboptimal omega-3 levels and imbalanced omega-6-3 ratios are prevalent worldwide. And we don't just identify the problem. Zinzino has a patented way, a super omega-3 product. I call it the next generation of omega-3 products that can get you back into balance in 120 days. And I've never seen anything like it. Now, I thought I knew the omega-3 space. That was my job. And when I was introduced to Zinzino, they educated me and took me to school. So I want to point out the scientist to the right with the black sweater, Professor Paul Clayton, if you don't know his work. He studied at Edinburgh and then at Oxford. I think he's one of the greatest minds in nutrition today. He coined the term pharmaconutrition. He says he knows most supplements are junk. You don't need them. He formulates things that you need, and we can test it and prove it, and you're going to see more here. We have our own patents, our own manufacturing, our own research and development, and some of the brightest minds in nutrition that you've ever seen, and they formulated that product to the lower left of the slide. This one here, the balance oil, the super omega-3 product. And in his blog article, From Algae to Omega, the alpha to the omega, that's where the term omega-3 came from. Ralph Holman, Dr. Holman, who coined the term, took it from scripture. Professor Clayton here has a little play on words here, from the beginning to the end. Where does it begin? It begins with algae. And I wrote a note because I remember he schooled me. He said, Stuart, fish don't make EPA and DHA. They accumulate them from eating microalgae at the base of the marine food chain, from algae to omega. All the omega-3s start out as algae, and when the small fish eat the algae have these polyphenols that protect the omega-3s and shuttle them where you want them to go. The larger fish eat the krill that eat the algae. The algae, I'll show you a picture in a moment, is covered with polyphenols. So you pick up any omega-3 product, I'm challenging you. You read the label, it'll say EPA and DHA, rosemary and vitamin E. Those are not the antioxidants in nature. Take a look at this. All EPA and DHA, all of it comes from algae. And wrapped around the EPA and DHA, you see that polyphenol. What wraps around the omega-3 for protection, that's the appropriate antioxidant. So I was flummoxed. I mean, I can't even come up with a word to explain how out of order I felt when I realized that I was promoting denatured omega-3 products. When you remove the mercury, this is important, you strip out those polyphenols. And I had no idea that that's one of the reasons why omega-3s were not performing in clinical trials the way we had hoped they did. They were not formulated correctly. And Zinzino put the polyphenols back together using pre-harvest premium extra virgin olive oil. It's genius. I was on the phone earlier today with the buyer from Mother's Market. If anyone's ever heard of Mother's Market out here in California, it's one of the oldest health food stores around of all time. And I said to her, Mo, can you believe that nobody ever thought of mixing extra virgin olive oil with omega-3? Nobody ever thought of this. Well, it's genius, it's simple, and we patented it because the polyphenols in algae, when they're gone, they're gone. Coincidentally enough, the polyphenols in olives are almost identical. This is a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. The terrestrial analog for the marine web fluorotannins inadvertently removed during molecular distillation, and it's patented. So here comes the olive oil, here comes the fish oil. The polyphenols wrap around and mimic nature. It is absolutely genius, and it's more stable than any omega-3 I've ever seen in your body. I want everyone to do some homework on the polyphenols themselves. Look up hydroxytyrosol, one of the main polyphenols in olive oil. It's the reason why extra virgin olive oil has health benefits. Fake olive oil does not, because of the polyphenols. Hydroxytyrosol in itself is a potent antioxidant. They use it for stroke models. It eats microcalcifications in your arteries. Wow. It's a prebiotic that feeds all the gram-positive bacteria. By itself, it is a superstar. Combining it with the highest quality triglyceride form, EPA and DHA, blending them together makes it the most powerful product I've seen. And here's my proof for me. An N of 1. I was taking Nordic Naturals and I scored 13-1. Bah. You want to be 3-1, 2-1, or 1-1. The only thing I did was switch to balance oil. I didn't change anything in my diet. I scored 3.8-1. Then I started making all the dietary changes. People have been telling me this my whole life. What this proof is, what this is proof of, is who cares if you're a subject matter expert? That means nothing anymore. All that matters is what's your number. Here's my favorite case history, a 63-year-old superwoman. I mean, she's sort of like Wonder Woman, if you ever get to meet her. She's a for real deal. She was a strength trainer for the Navy SEALs. She was in the Eco Challenge race where you run through a swamp. It's like Iron Man times 10. She's been to 80 countries around the world. She's a longevity researcher, certified in nutrition from Cornell, owns a big farmer's market. And she said to me, I'm going to ace this test. I take omega-3 every day. I do far infrared sauna, intermittent fasting. I'm an organic grower. Look, it didn't matter. She wasn't testing. She was guessing. Her oil did not have the polyphenols. She failed. Here are her results after 120 days. This is the whole presentation. For clinicians, you want your patients to have check engine light on, check engine light off. Now let's look at her numbers. She went from 23-1 AA to 1 part EPA. That's a lot of arachidonic acid in the tissue, which is the issue. Her omega-3 index is 3.1. You want it to be 8. Not good. It's not what you want. Now she's 1.8-1. Healthy inflammatory response. Enough EPA to clean up the spill in aisle 5. And the omega-3 index is 9.6. That's what you want. And if you think you have omega protection without seeing all green, you have no idea. And what I love the most is it's a 1-second solution. We have capsules. I hear that all the time. But I'm telling you, you mix olive oil with omega-3, the mouth flavor is different. I was the guy standing there for Nordic Naturals all day long. Have you had your brain food? Have you had your brain food? At the trade shows. And people would take a shot of that oil and say, why did you give it to me? It's so slimy. Well, here, When you add the olive oil with the polyphenols, with the lemon and the fish oil, it's so delicious. People pour it into bowls so you can dip bread in it. People use it directly on their food. And this is the statistic that inspired me to join Zinzino. Of the 1.6 million tests conducted, this will show up in your test results. 95% of those people taking a balanced oil product daily have an omega-6-3 ratio of near 3-to-1 after 120 days. 95% success rate in 590,000 human beings. You want big data? That's big data. Now there's more. I'm telling you, it's the most modifiable risk factor for CVD. There are other benefits for getting into balance. So in Frontiers in Medicine last year, insights into the effect of omega-3 fatty acids on the gut microbiota. We talked about the polyphenols and olive oils having an effect on the gut microbiota. Omega-3 is also a prebiotic as well as omega-6 in its own way. So look at this, the impact of a balanced tissue omega-6-3 ratio. So here's the added benefit. If you look on the right side of the slide, balanced omega-3 shifts the metabolism of tryptophan, the largest of the amino acids, ubiquitous in our diet, from the host metabolism into the kyuranine pathway towards the microbially produced indole pathway, IPA. So tryptophan has a metabolic fate, and if you're healthy enough and you have the right short chain fatty acids, you have the right anaerobic environment, if you have the right bug, we're looking for Clostridium sporogenus, which is a rare bug, it will convert tryptophan into IPA, which enhances the gut barrier integrity. It has its own antioxidant defenses. It goes back up through the blood-brain barrier. It's a suicide scavenger, and it also helps to support brain-derived nootropic factor. Wouldn't it be great if not only could you test the patient's omega-6-3 ratio and the omega-3 index, what if you could test the metabolism of tryptophan and the KYN and IPA pathway? Well, let me show you what Zinzino just did to change the world of gut health. Traditional leaky gut tests detect damage after it happens. They don't answer why it's happening, whether it's getting better or worse, whether the protective microbial signaling is intact, how the gut-brain immune axis is behaving. It doesn't give you any of that. They're actually diagnostic snapshots. They're not system maps. Our tests are system maps. The gut health test detects functional stress and loss of resilience. This is important before damage becomes obvious. Now that distinction matters. So welcome, if you've never seen it before, introducing the gut health test. The gut health test is different because instead of sending in a stool sample where you find out who's there, that's the microbial diversity, the gut health test measures in your blood, what are they doing? What's the functional output? It's a at-home metabolomic fingertip test to tell you the health of the gut-brain immune axis. It's a pre-leaky gut test. You pair these two together, now we are empowering patients with tremendous information. If you'd like a deep Q&A on the methodology, because we gave birth to this, we created it internally. This is one of many tests in the pipeline driven by AI and the scientists at Zinzino. This great interview with Dr. Martina Torrenson, who's our lead on this project, is a must-read in NutraIngredients. So here's what you don't want: a low gut health index. Just like you want a high omega-3 index, you want a high gut health index. So just like Clemens von Schacke and Bill Harris introduced the world to the omega-3 index 20 years ago, Zinzino introduces you to the gut health index, a number that everyone will use. We take the metabolism of tryptophan, whether it goes down the KYN pathway or the IPA pathway. We look at immune support, microbiome immune support, gut microbiome efficiency, immune stress, and we put it all together into one number. So what you're looking at is a metabolic fingerprint often seen alongside leaky gut, even before overt permeability markers arise. You don't want that. This is what you want. You want high IPA and a high gut health index. When you have high levels of IPA, it's signaling antioxidant and barrier protection. When you have low IPA, it's insinuating impaired tight junctions and increased permeability. This is what you want your gut health test to look like. You want a high gut health, maybe 95 or higher. IPA goes from 0 to 10. This is 2.8, so that's still considered high. And just like the balance test, check engine light on to check engine light off, you want to go from out of balance into balance. This result here argues against clinically meaningful leaky gut. For the practitioners that are testing zonulin or lipopolysaccharides, or they're looking at other markers, you can pair this with to get a bigger image, a bigger picture of what's going on with your patient. So here's the antidote when you fail the gut health test. Professor Paul Clayton put this protocol together. They had considered calling the gut health test the health protocol test, and they elected to call it the gut health test instead. Professor Clayton formulated these four together. We've got our balance oil. I call it a Mediterranean diet in a bottle, paired with xenobiotic. This was news to me. He said, Stuart, you're taking psyllium that's one length for 30 years of fiber. Xenobiotic has little tiny fibers, medium fibers, and longer fibers to feed the gut, the fermenting chamber, through the whole tract. The xenobiotic helps to feed gram-positive bacteria that will proliferate and drive down gram-negative bacteria. He said you then need beta-glucans for the innate immune system, paired with the right carotenoids, the right phytonutrients, the right vitamins, and the right minerals for a healthy immune system. They're also cofactors for when the body desaturates and elongates ALA into DHA, for example. You need all those cofactors. He put them all together because those micronutrients are missing in our standard diet the way they used to be. And then finally, the one to the right is a nootropic for the brain. It's powered by Afron, which is a branded saffron. It's backed by 10 randomized control trials for stress response, menopause symptoms, sleep. They've even tested it on adolescents. So that is the antidote right there to the modern existence. And this is what Zinzino recommends if you fail the gut health test. So let's now switch gears for the next few minutes and talk about the business of Zinzino, how to share these products with your patients. And what I like to say, I'm going to show you now how we can help you quantifiably and measurably improve the health of your patients while covering some of, if not all of the overhead of your clinic with little to no stress on the doctor or your staff. So let me introduce you to this incredible company, Zinzino. Founded in 2005, we're publicly traded. Here's our ticker, ZNZNF. I'll show you the stock performance. It's not an invitation to buy the stock. I'm not a stockbroker. We're now open in 52 countries around the world. The blue dots are the Zinzino offices. The red dots are the Zinzino directors, the sales directors. So we have clinicians and physicians in our team all over the world that are able to have their patients, you'll see how, share their Zinzino products with their friends and family wherever they live, where the provider still gets to earn money from those recommendations. So let's now look at the math around the opportunity. A trend is when 2.5% of people feel comfortable pricking their own finger and having the best products sent to their front door. That's the kitchen table medicine from Scandinavia. When 2.5% of America adopts what we're doing in Europe, that will be 8.2 million tests. We have currently tested just over, I have to update the slide, 61,000 people now here in the United States. Now in Europe, where we come from, we've tested 1.5% of the population. Now here's the math. When we test 1.5% of the United States, that'll be 5 million tests. That will generate 1 billion in sales. 50 cents of every dollar goes back to the Zinzino independent partners. Our biggest market right now is in Germany with healthcare providers that are making all of these products available to their patients. So we are so far pre-trend here in America. All we're doing is taking what's working like a charm in Europe. We brought it across the pond, and we have the fastest growing team here in the United States. In Canada, the opportunity is even bigger. All of our efforts have been in Europe, and now we're expanding around the rest of the world. So how do you get started? It's so easy. You can become a customer right away or become a partner. This is our medical professional call. We're speaking specifically to providers here. It would be great if you become a customer, but if there's an inkling that you'll share this with one person, tell one patient about this, then becoming a partner makes more sense because you can become your own first customer in your own online store. Now, let me show you, since I come from retail, my whole life in the supplement business, I'll put on that little retailer hat. The test is $180 retail, but the provider gets to offer it for $127 because the provider has their own online store. The product is $70 retail. We offer it for 47 bucks, but we're going to give you the test and the bottle for 127 together. Now, if you think about this, clinicians and providers are offering the same products that they're taking, and they're offering them to their patients at the exact same price. How do they make money? I'm going to show you. The system is just brilliant, and it's scalable globally. You can use soft gels when you travel. You can take the liquid while you're home for $127. You get 2 tests and a bottle of oil or the capsules. It's 70% off retail. You'll see why the stock is performing so well. And why do you stay on the oil for 4 months? That's how long it takes for all the red blood cells to turn over. So you take your first test. We send you the second test for free with your 5th order directly to the patient. Now, let's say you want to become a Zinzino independent partner and make these products available to your patients around the world. You can start with what we call the basic kit, or you can invest in what we call the ultimate kit, which gives you the ultimate return on investment. It is the very best package because in your $1,195 investment, not only do you get access to the business, you get your own online store, but you get over $3,000 worth of product. So many providers, they get the ultimate kit, they start testing patients right away, even sampling the oil to some people so they can see how great it tastes. And then they start putting people on subscribe and save. Zinzino has been helping providers move away from analog to even move away from full script to embrace this Scandinavian subscription model where the provider can continue to earn as your patients talk to their friends and their friends and their friends. And when you get to 25 products on subscription, which is easy to do, then Zinzino refunds the doctor the entire $1,195 for starting their business. It's brilliant. In Canada, we have the same options to get started with the same refund campaign. And the best part is every one of your happy, satisfied patients can share it with their friends around the world. They get free product and the provider continues to earn money. I'm going to show you how much money right here. When the provider has 100 bottles on subscription, they're making $10,000 annually with 100 bottles on subscription. There's a one-time bonus of $11,500 that they pay out over 25 months. But just to keep it simple, 100 bottles on subscription, the practice is making $10,000 a year. Now, when you get 250 bottles on subscription, the practice is making $25,000 a year. You can easily go from 100 bottles on subscription to 250 because every one of your patients gets their own cloned website, something I've never heard of before. They forward it, it's gamified to their friends, and they say, hey, I listened to the doctor, I got the test in the oil, I failed the test, I'm feeling better, I'd like you to have the same experience. They forward their link. Their friends buy the product and the provider makes the money. So you go from 250 products on subscription to 500 products on subscription. That's 50,000 a year. There are people in Europe that have 1,000 products on subscription. That's $100,000 a year. This is the most efficient way for your recommendation to continue to pay you as if you wrote a piece of music that continues to pay you residual income. So it's worked in Europe, it's working brilliantly here, and we can teach you more about it. And here's how the market is responding to Zinzino's business model. When I joined in 2024, the stock was $7. We bought as much of it as we could. We did 200 million in sales in 2024. Last year, we ended at 363 million, up 51% year over year. In America, we're up 109%. The stock price has returned 664% over the last 5 years. How does it look like the world is responding to kitchen table medicine? One of the physicians on our team said, "Hey, Stuart, these tests tell you the health of the patient. This tells you the health of the company." And then finally, there's an indice. We all love data, something called the momentum ranks. And this ranks these direct to consumer companies. That's the future, Amazon. Here we are. Zinzino is the fastest growing direct selling company in the world. So most importantly, we will provide you a turnkey training system where you will receive step-by-step guidance on how to achieve your ambitions, knowing always we have one major mission: to measurably move the dial on public health globally. We had 750,000 customers last year. We're going to have 1 million new customers this year. At the rate of growth, we'll have 100 million customers. Think about that. By the year 2050, where will public health be? Where will the stock price be? So what are the next steps? It's simple. Become a Zinzino partner. The timing is perfect. Get back to whoever invited you. We'll get you started. Schedule a follow-up. Become a Zinzino customer and connect us with others. We are here at this exact same time at this same link every Thursday night and Friday for our lunch and learn. If you are interested in joining Zinzino, let me be the first person to invite you to the team, and let me close with this. In my entire career in nutrition, this test will help provide your patients the most important number they don't know, they will know, that they should know. If there's one supplement to take, it's balance oil. It's a Mediterranean diet in a bottle. 1.6 million tests prove that this stuff really works. You can simultaneously improve the health of your patients while taking care of the practice at the same time. John, sending the call back to you for closing comments.
You got time for some questions?
Yes, I do.
That is such good news. I'm sure everyone is so glad to hear that. By the way, we're just over 10,000 tests away from 1.7 million.